and welcome to the Why We See Movies podcast. I'm your host, Ron.The. Joining me, as always, we got Darren.
Hello.
And Paul.
Yo.
And Ivan. Today we're going to be reviewing the new season of Black Mirror. Later on, we'll do our rant and rave segment, but first, let's see what's going on inside the entertainment world with...
You on the mark!
Hey, boys.
Hey.
Hey.
Long time no see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's been ages.
Since we've last been together, a few more trailers have dropped. First, we'll start with Deadpool 2. Who's most excited about this one? Maybe Ivan.
I enjoyed the new trailer. I thought it was pretty funny how they insulted Justice League to start it off.
Okay, I haven't watched this trailer, but now you've intrigued me. I want to see it now.
You probably heard about the whole mustache thing with Justice League. So Cable comes out, his arm is all green. It's like, what the fuck? We couldn't get the special effects going. It's like, let me take care of this. Then they go back and the special effects are done and because the whole mustache. And it was a fun trailer. What you expect from Deadpool. Really crazy and weird. Also, you know what? Josh Brolin looks amazing as Cable.
Cable and Thanos within a few months. He's really knocking him out.
So, I don't know. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it too because I appreciated Deadpool for being so different than anything else we were getting at the time. I mean, just stupid humor, which usually doesn't land for me, but I think because it was so many pop culture in-jokes that that does land with me. So I really enjoyed the first one. I'm looking forward to same kind of mentality in this one. So
looks like a big bowl of the same.
Yeah, it does.
I'm kind of happy that it is going to be more of the same because I remember the original director left because he wanted to go bigger budget, bigger everything, and I kind of find that when they do that, it ruins the movie.
Anytime that you spend more money, you have less creative control.
Yeah.
Yep, because now the studio's looking at you, and now they want more return on that investment.
Right.
Yeah, Deadpool shouldn't be fighting Dormammu in the mirror dimension. It should be a low-key villain and low-key kind of climax compared to the big epic superhero movie. So keeps the same tone, and I enjoyed Deadpool, and I didn't love it. I'm not dying for this one, but I hope I enjoy it too.
Yeah, I thought it looks good too. Again, I wasn't the biggest fan of the first one, but I'll definitely check it out. I like the marketing campaign that gives almost nothing away from the movie. You can't really distill a plot from it. It's half of the marketing campaign is this has nothing to do with the film itself anyways.
Deadpool is playing with
Bob Ross.
And he's playing with toys, and he dressed up a Deadpool toy as Woody from Toy Story.
Isn't that great to have a campaign like that where it's just, you're not being spoiled with anything and it still gives you the exact flavor and taste of the film.
And
just having fun.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's going to bring in more people than if you just show them every scene from the movie.
Exactly. A smarter way to go. Okay. Another trailer that dropped. The trailer for Sony Pictures' upcoming Venom starring Tom Hardy.
Well, it looks interesting. I mean, Tom Hardy's usually great in anything he touches, so hopefully he'll be worth watching. As much as I didn't mind the tone of the trailer, I agree with all the criticism that if you had no idea who Venom was, you'd have no fucking idea what this movie was about, other than some guy running from the government, which we've seen in every Mission Impossible movie.
Yeah.
So, as much as I like the tone, I don't know what new it brings to the table, other than Tom Hardy in a superhero movie when he's not Bane.
And he's a talent, but I mean, is this material going to be worthy of his talent? I don't know. It's the trailer looks pretty unspectacular to me. Just to say it looked interesting, Paul's being a little generous. I don't know. It kind of fell flat.
Yeah,
for me.
exactly. If Tom Hardy wasn't in it, would you think it looks interesting?
No, it might be one that I think I might watch it on Netflix.
Right.
And Tom Holland is listed on IMDb, so he's in this, and so it's part of the Spider-Verse, but not part of the MCU.
But I heard that he's showing up as Peter Parker. There'll be no Spider-Man appearances.
And it's not
However
even
it is, sure,
it's not even going to be referenced as Peter Parker.
Yeah.
So
you're just going to see him.
You're just going to see him probably with a camera or something. I think it looks unfocused, very unspectacular.
And yet they showed so little, it's hard to even get a taste.
True.
It's just a teaser, really. I mean, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm not interested.
But it looks like it's him on the run from the government for the movie. The symbiote attaches to him, and then they're chasing him down. Really? That's what your Venom movie pitch is? Like,
is this what they want to use to start an entire new universe?
Like, you got to show Venom as like this badass tearing crap up on the streets, not like spending the entire movie running away.
It's a misguided project from the start. All agreed. Yeah, it would have to get fantastic reviews for me to venture out to see that one.
The enthusiasm is not very high at all.
Okay, and other movie projects. On Mel Gibson front, Richard Donner has announced that Lethal Weapon 5 is officially dead. They've been trying to get this movie off the ground for a few years now. I don't know if it has to do with creative conflicts or just Mel Gibson's marquee name right now. But that's not stopping Mel Gibson from making movies, because he has announced that The Passion of the Christ 2, The Resurrection, is definitely happening. Jim Caviezel is coming back as Jesus, I think was the character.
This is a joke on the level of the Super Bowl, the Crocodile Dundee remake.
This ain't the Dundee thing.
This movie is supposed to take place during the 3 days from like the death to resurrection.
Jim Caviezel has read the script and said it has some mind-blowing stuff in it that, in his opinion, will make this the biggest movie of all time.
That doesn't sound like
you could laugh at that, but The Passion of the Christ raked in, 600 million worldwide.
Sure.
So it's not out of question.
It seems like a ridiculously terrible idea.
I heard about this probably at least 6 months ago, and I thought it was a bad joke at first, too. And then I realized, no, it's really happening. And I endured the first one once, and I will never see it again.
I think that is the word to... that's the right word to use for that movie. It's an endurance test.
Yeah, but that religious crowd is going to go, and they're going to watch this
That's what I think.
He's got a built-in audience, for sure.
Yeah. And especially like all those people that saw Passion of the Christ. Well, maybe not you guys, but a lot of those people are going to go. And then it was a lot of that. It was repeat viewings that really pumped up the box office of that.
If it does half the business that the first one does, it'll be a huge success.
And I'd say what you will about Mel Gibson. Usually when he puts a movie together, it's a good movie.
Sure. He's a good director.
Passion of the Christ was a good movie. And if it's as good as that, sure, I'll go see it too. But it sounds like the prospects are iffy.
Yeah. Another wait and see. Okay.
I'll wait. You guys see it.
I would imagine just in time for next Easter, probably.
You know what? I've actually never seen Passion of the Christ. I've never had any inkling for it.
It's a fine film. I saw it in the theater. I saw it once. I've never needed to see it again.
Sure, but you can take it in the same level that you can take Lord of the Rings. I mean, you have the same religious views as I do, more or less. I mean, I don't believe in magic or elves or Wookiees.
But I wanted to see Lord of the Rings on the big screen.
Okay, sure.
I went to Catholic school. Do I really need to see story on the big screen that I've been told every single fucking day for...
Well, if told well, why not? And it is told well.
No thanks.
Okay.
Okay. In other movie news, looks like Todd Phillips' standalone Joker film is still moving along, and Joaquin Phoenix is in talks to play the Joker.
Sounds like good casting.
Yeah, I think he would be good. He's been dabbling in a few superhero projects over the years. I think they wanted him for Doctor Strange. Well, he's a great actor, and I think he can turn in a fabulous Joker. The entire project I'm a little skeptical about.
I'd immediately rather, and I still have not seen Suicide Squad, but I'd rather see his Joker than Jared Leto's Joker.
Me too, and I have seen Suicide Squad. So
it would be pretty tough to make a worse movie than that.
I agree, and I know we weren't given as much as they intended for us to see of the Joker in Suicide Squad. I hated what I saw. Maybe that would change if I did see more. But yeah, I think it's kind of two-sided as far as them always recently changing Jokers all the time. Like, are they trying to distance themselves from Jared Leto? It's kind of confusing to the audience, but I think, honestly, from what I saw of Jared Leto's performance, I would distance myself from that, because there's a lot of backlash to it, too. And is he still interested in reprising that role anyways?
Yeah, you don't need to arbitrarily stick to your guns just because, well, he was our Joker in that one, so we're keeping with him. If he didn't work, DC needs to find things that help it along. And if finding a new Joker helps it along, then...
With the amount of footage that was cut from his performance, too, it's really hard to evaluate if we saw his real Joker or not.
I did watch the extended where they had a bit more of his interactions. They actually had a lot more in the script to make the Joker darker and more evil, but they cut it out because they were concerned about making him too evil. Because he was supposed to be abusive towards Harley, but they decided to remove all that just because they're like, we can't have the Joker being too much of a villain.
Well, that's so counterpoint to making a Joker standalone Joker movie. Then are you just going to soften him up for his own movie then?
Is this just a standalone random Joker movie? Are they just redesigning the Joker and throwing him into this universe now?
His conception for the character might be so completely different from even a comic book movie. They could disassemble everything about the character that you love. Yeah. Who knows?
Like everything with these DC movies, it just it's a big wait and see. If maybe there's some potential there with Joaquin Phoenix, but otherwise,
honestly, I'm looking forward to another take on the Joker, and whether it's something that's comic accurate or a different take. I loved Heath Ledger's, and that had not a lot to do with the actual comic version. It was a more modern take, and it worked in the story setting. If they do something that works with the story, I'm on board.
Okay, moving on to more news. We're old enough. I don't know about you, Ivan. To remember a miniseries back in the 80s called V.
I've heard of it.
Oh, yes.
Wasn't there a reimagining
a couple of years ago?
Yeah,
a
few years ago they tried something out. Did you guys watch that when it first
I
came out as a kid?
It felt like it was on for a long time. And looking back, and it was like one season. I think.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, I really enjoyed V. The 8-year-old in me enjoyed.
At the time, it was event television.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved the original miniseries. I remember it kind of got watered down, and when it went to an actual series, it wasn't as good. But yeah, the original miniseries was actually quite good from what I remember, and did the whole German Jew allegory, brought a lot of that into it. So there was actually some social context, which made it a little more interesting, not just sci-fi fluff, which for the 80s is groundbreaking.
For network television at that time, right.
Yeah. And I can't say I remember it well, but...
Exactly. I remember a few images for sure. That first time you see that jaw unlock. The mouth, right. And I can't remember what he swallows in that
it's
first
a mouse. It's like a white mouse or something.
Exactly. And I remember that was quite effective.
That was a striking image.
Right. Yeah. So the original creator, Kenneth Johnson, wants to make a new trilogy of films based on V. Are you guys excited about that? Do you think the topic is ripe for
we'll see.
reimagining?
I enjoy sci-fi. I enjoy good sci-fi, I should say. So if he's got something there to make a good trilogy out of it, okay, sure.
The basic storyline being that aliens have come down to Earth, and at first they give us gifts of all these advancements in technology, whether it's medical and all these things. And then, of course, they start...
revealing their true nature.
Revealing their true nature as they're mixing in more with the human populace. And we find out that at first they look just like us. And then we find out that they're not exactly humanoid. What's the big plan? I can't remember. Do they want to eat us or just colonize
resources.
us?
I believe they're stealing water, which is why they have the huge ships. I believe they're mining our natural resources.
Right, they're amphibians. So, anyways, we'll see if all of this takes off or not. But I thought, harkening back from my childhood with memories of that show, I was like, okay, show me what you got.
There's a nostalgia aspect for sure. Yeah,
I'll give it a shot. I gave the reboot a couple years ago
Did you?
chance. Yeah, one of my best friends, Troy, he was in it for one episode, and that nostalgia factor. I loved the series when I was a kid, so I thought, I'll give it a shot. And I think I lasted 4 episodes before I decided there was better television to watch.
It's all about the writing.
Yep. So I'll give it a shot. The basis of a good story is there. So if they pull it off, great. I mean, they remade Battlestar Galactica into a fantastic show.
Exactly. And that show is all about the writing. Okay, cool. That's all I've got for news this week. Shall we move on to our feature review?
We shall.
Black Mirror was created by Charlie Brooker. It's an anthology series exploring a twisted high-tech world where humanity's greatest innovations and darkest instincts collide. Okay, there's 6 episodes this season to go through. I thought we'd just go through one by one. We'll try to avoid spoilers as much as we can, but this is probably more for people who have already seen the episodes. It's hard to delve into the plot completely if we're going to go through all 6 of these. Okay, so we'll start with the first episode, USS Callister. It was directed by Toby Haynes. A woman wakes up on a Star Trek-esque ship where the crew praise their all-knowing and fearless captain. I was a big fan of this one. I thought it was a lot of fun. As Black Mirror episodes go, it was a little off the beaten track. It's had more comedy in it. Jesse Plemons stars in it. Can't remember the girl that's in it.
Christine Milioti. She
right?
was the mother on Himium.
And she was also in Fargo, so it's kind of a reunion of the season 2 Fargo cast. But I thought it was really good. Did you guys like that one?
I was a little more medium on this one. I don't mind that it was comedic. I mean, I'm a big fan, of Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and they had a lot of comedy episodes too. I just thought it was a little kind of dull and uninteresting, and I admit I fell asleep for about 10 or 15 minutes, including right up until the very end.
It's about 25% of the show.
So, yeah, I mean, I can't give this one a fully, informed review, but I wasn't enjoying it that much up to the point that I did fall asleep. I thought it was okay, but I don't know. We've seen so many Star Trek parodies, and it didn't bring a lot of new to the table. To me, this was one of my 2 least favorite Black Mirror episodes.
This season or overall?
Overall and this season.
Okay. Paul?
I enjoyed it. It's funny you mentioned The Twilight Zone and these other anthology shows that we saw from the past, because this really reminded me more of one of those types of shows rather than an actual Black Mirror.
It felt more Twilight Zone-y than Black Mirror-ish, yeah.
Absolutely, which not a bad way to kick off a season. Yeah, a little more fun and lighthearted. I enjoyed it. It was a little bit more candy more than anything. Wouldn't rank among my favorites, but wouldn't rank among my least favorites. So it was fun, which is, you can't say that about very many Black Mirror
exactly.
episodes.
At least that's
the cast was absolutely great in it too. I should say that, and they were having a lot of fun with it, which helped me appreciate it more.
I love the idea of downloaded people, making decisions on whether they want to exist or not. I kind of like that idea.
Is that what you do when you edit the podcast, Ron?
Exactly.
No, I agree. Like that show, especially like the one, I guess they call them cookies, the artificial intelligence, blackmailing her real self with pictures that she knows to kind of get her to do all these things where she's like, holy fuck.
Yeah, that was great.
And even that line where like, well, what do we use? And the guy's like, well, any of the last 9 would do.
And that was great too. Yeah, a lot of good humor in it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know what it is about it. For whatever reason, just didn't really seem like a Black Mirror episode to me almost.
Yeah.
I think in this one, they were more including Americans in this. And it wasn't just like BBC, so more Americanized versus what I was used to. And kind of thought the main guy creating like virtual copies of his coworkers that kind of torture him in real life. So he's kind of getting them back in this virtual world. But I thought, wouldn't he have the balls to kind of stand up for himself in the real world, especially being these guys people's boss?
That's what I loved about it, is the fact that this guy has such a completely different personality inside. Yeah.
Like psychopathic personality.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He deserves what happens to him.
Being Black Mirror, and they usually have bleak endings, that I thought he was going to win. Yeah.
No, I don't mind every episode now and then not totally depressing me.
No, I agree. It was a nice little change, but I don't know, for whatever reason, it just felt off.
Okay. The next episode was called Arkangel. It was directed by Jodie Foster. After nearly losing her daughter, a mother invests in a new technology that allows her to keep track of her. As a new parent, Darren, is this a device you'd like to buy in the future?
I can see
your
the
kids?
Intrigue, but I don't know if such Big Brother efforts are worth.
Right.
Yeah, this episode is my second least favorite episode of all time. I got to the end of this and I said, I'm really, really trepidatious about this season. Did Charlie Brooker take all the talk about how dark Black Mirror is too much to heart and really try to lighten up this season? I was worried. And to me, this episode could have gone much darker. That's what I like about Black Mirror. Yeah, it's dark. Yeah, it depresses us, but it's so damn good. And that's why I watch it. And when there is a good opposing episode like San Junipero, man, that's what makes those stand out.
Right.
But now the first third of this season is done, and I haven't been impressed so far. Both of them were a little too light for my taste. Yeah, this was a darker episode, but
did you at least enjoy the
relatively
concept, the premise of it?
It's got a good premise, but yeah, I just felt because it wasn't too dark. I don't know. It was kind of a run-of-the-mill story because it didn't get as dark as I was hoping it would. Once again, good performances and good writing, but these first 2 episodes of this season were my 2 least favorite episodes of all time.
Uh-oh. Well,
this is probably my least favorite episode of Black Mirror. The entire run. I always find that Black Mirror is at its best when it has a little bit of moral ambiguity about it, where you're watching it, you're engaged, you're kind of questioning what you would do in that situation. This whole episode, I thought the mother was a moron. What outcome did she expect? I felt it played out exactly the way you felt it would and should. There wasn't really anything interesting going on. Just didn't engage me at all. And
yeah, I wasn't engaged, but I can see her motivation. What she was, I'd say the moral conflict is there because I can see where the mother's coming from. That appeal of knowing what exactly your kids are doing, where and when is for sure. I'm not at that point yet. Mine are 5 months and 2.5 years, but man, when they're 17 years old and they're going out, what am I going to be thinking then? Who knows, right? Like, I can see the appeal.
You're going to be remembering what you did at that age and go,
yeah, exactly.
Right. And if you had technology available to you.
It's tough. Yeah. Who knows?
Well, technically you will, right? Because everything they do, they'll be posting on Facebook. All you have to do is keep an eye out on their Facebook wall and you'll know everything they're up to.
Exactly.
I don't know.
They should make one where the parent wants to find out less about their kid.
Yeah, I can see the appeal of it, but yeah, just dramatically uninteresting to me. And
it just felt really flat for me. The performances were fine. I just found it heavy-handed and obvious, but I was hoping there was going to be something that would kind of
that's the thing too.
Turn things on its ear.
Yeah, because with Black Mirror, there's so often twist isn't the right word, but it doesn't take you in the direction where you're expecting. There was zero surprises, and the story played out exactly like you would figure it would, and it didn't have that sharpness that Black Mirror's writing I've expected of it.
Yep.
And I kind of felt that the mom, whatever her motivation was, it's like, so you're telling me, what was it, 13 years this girl went without this thing being off? You're telling me in 13 years that this girl has been absolutely perfect, that she never gave her mom a reason to turn that thing on? But just this one time,
there's never been any instances.
Her a phone, and her mom's like, first thing she does is like runs to that thing and turns her right on, and ooh, my daughter's having sex.
Mm-hmm.
And then her daughter finds out that, oh, you turned this machine back on, you're doing everything that I hated that worked so badly as a child. She kind of snaps, like when her grandfather passes away in front of the daughter, and he's dying, and if that filter wasn't on, she could have noticed that and gotten help. Mm-hmm. Instead, all she sees is her grandfather as blocks, and she has no idea what's going on.
Yeah, and from the moment we see that filter option exists, we know something like that's going to happen, and just was not an intriguing episode at all.
Reminding me a little bit of the technology that they used in that John Hamm one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which was used far more effectively in that episode.
And I kind of felt that the ending in this one, it wasn't deserved for what happened.
Part of me says it was a little harsh, and yet I expect Black Mirror to be harsher than what they did too. So I was kind of disappointed in both ways.
Yeah, but to me, it's almost like it wasn't called for. It's like, okay, you take that device and you smash it, you're done. I almost kind of expected this thing like backfires and puts her in a freaking coma for the rest of her life. Then her mom has her in a bed forever, and she always knows what's going on, right?
That's almost the kind of twist that
where it made the story better, right?
Yeah. It's not a great episode, but I did enjoy it. I always think an hour of Black Mirror, even a weaker episode, is better than just about an hour of anything else.
Yeah, and that's not a bad point.
So, it's not a highlight for me, but I did enjoy it. Okay, the next episode is called Crocodile. It's directed by John Hillcoat. It's the guy who did The Proposition. It's a good director. A woman interviews various people using a device that allows her to access their memories. Did you guys like this one?
This put Black Mirror back on track for me. Yeah. This one nice
and bleak.
It's bleak. It's the juicy bleakness that I like Charlie Brooker for. I didn't know precisely where it was headed. You can see, a few paths that are possibilities, and the way it's pieced together, interview by interview by interview, and because you know what she did from the start, so there has to be consequences, and to see how it slowly worked to that, and how this essentially good woman has been put in this tough position, but yes, it's her fault, but it's also kind of not her fault each step of the way.
Oh, yeah.
And then she keeps digging it deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's one of those fascinating crash and burns that such good writing. I mean, she wasn't to blame, but she was, it's found as a fascinating
episode. She's to blame for the
to
later
blame
ones.
in the beginning, but as the story went on,
exactly,
in the beginning, you're kind of sympathize with her. It's like, holy crap, what did you do in that situation?
Yeah, with that first death, what can you do? I mean, you can't.
It wasn't her fault.
No, it wasn't her fault. You're in the middle of nowhere. You can't do anything but help your boyfriend. And then, it all kind of spirals down from there, yeah.
I loved it. I agree with you, Darren. I mean, as much as I enjoyed the first episode for what it was, the second episode really was a low. It was nice to see it rebound back. And I always find it really interesting when they put these little Easter eggs in the episode too, like little throwbacks to previous episodes, because there's a scene where they focus on a song that's playing. Well, that's the same song that in season 1, the girl, when she was in that talent contest, and she had to sing a song.
Oh, is it? I didn't realize
that's the song she sang.
Nice catch.
And then that was also in the Christmas episode. They played that song there. And then I can't remember off the top of my head what episode in season 3 it was in, but they've included that song in every single season.
Right, okay.
It was kind of neat to catch that little Easter egg. But like you said, right from the onset, they put you in that kind of moral gray, ambiguous area of like, okay, what would you do in this situation? And then the lengths that this woman goes to protect the secret that she didn't even want to have in the beginning. Was really interesting, and I thought it was a very beautiful episode too, like when they're driving in the countryside and very cinematic.
Like it was shot in Iceland. I don't know where it was shot, but it didn't feel like the UK to me, but that's fine. It's just, it was wonderful location photography wherever it was.
No, I loved it.
Oh, I agree. And I definitely liked the two different stories that were kind of happening at the same time.
Yeah, because you want to see how are these going to quite come together. Yeah. I'm not sure. And then
with the one lady investigating just an accident for insurance purposes, and how that leads her to this woman's front door. He kind of brings up a lot of questions to the whole...
That poor insurance investigator.
Yeah. And it kind of brings up the whole, like, they basically come to your house and be like, well, we need your memories. And you're like, shit.
Exactly.
You know?
Right.
What else were you doing at the time? Do you really want
And you can't say no.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if she...
Yeah, it's like, I can get a court order if I need to. And
the whole thing was like, afterwards, I was kind of researching more of this, but remember when she's kind of given like the whole terms and conditions of it and she just kind of signs it away? Mm-hmm. It's like, if you actually read that, you can say no and turn it away due to some things.
She's just leading her down the road to say yes.
But if she actually went through it all, because everybody these days, like, terms and conditions comes up, you'll accept whatever. You don't know what you're accepting to. Same thing with here. But if she actually went through it, she could have found a loophole, avoided the whole memory scan, and gotten away with it. And then the things that she was willing to do to.
Exactly.
You got to darker and darker.
You got to stop feeling sorry for her.
And
sympathy wears out pretty quickly.
Yeah. And it has that twist at the end where, she didn't quite do what she needed to do.
He didn't take care of everything.
No.
Yeah. Well, who knew that they could do what they did, right?
So, okay, good.
The eyes were there.
All right, we're back on track with Black Mirror. Okay, the next episode was called Hang the DJ. It's directed by Tim Van Patten. He's behind Sopranos and Boardwalk Empire.
And he's done a Game of Thrones, I think.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Yeah, he's just a solid, experienced TV director.
Exactly. Paired up by a dating program that puts an expiration date on all relationships, Frank and Amy soon begin to question the system's logic. This is another one of those more upbeat episodes of Black Mirror. This would be this season's, I think, San Junipero. That's what they're trying for. Anyways.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
We got about 40 minutes through it, and it was bedtime for us. Mm-hmm. And I paused it, and I said to Megan, if they fucking keep these two apart by the end of this episode, I'm going to be so goddamn mad.
See, now you don't want it bleak.
Exactly, because this was this season's San Junipero. And I might say this would rank amongst my favorite episodes of the series. Mm-hmm. I absolutely loved it. These two actors were perfect. I want to compare it to a line that Anthony Hopkins said recently. I was watching the special features on the Silence of the Lambs DVD, and he was addressing how people always talk about the chemistry between him and Jodie Foster. And he says, well, what is this term chemistry that people use? We were doing our jobs. And that's what these two people were doing. They're just phenomenal actors. Mm-hmm. They dedicated themselves to this role. And I don't know if I've seen a couple better suited for each other in TV or movies in the last 10 years. I was really rooting for them. And
they're not a conventional couple on the surface.
No, yeah. Man, I can't say enough good things about this episode. I loved it.
Yeah, I really liked it too. And I'm always just knowing the structure and the way things go in Black Mirror. I'm always kind of wondering.
This was iffy. Okay. This one was iffy. Like San Junipero, you kind of had a good feeling about it, but this one you didn't know.
And always wondering what is really going on, right? Like these people are on a date, but there's enough clues of everything isn't just as what you're led to believe it is on the surface.
And I like how this is another one where they treat the audience with intelligence and they don't sit down and give you all the expository information right at the beginning. Okay, here's the world they're living in. Here's how it all is. You have to piece together how they're living and what it's all about just through their natural conversations and living their lives. I appreciate that Black Mirror treats its audience with respect like that.
Mm-hmm. Me too. I couldn't agree more. I like episodes and movies where they drop you in and it's kind of, well, figure it out. We're going to give you enough clues to piece it together, but we're not going to hold your hand. Mm-hmm. And this did it beautifully. And I more or less figured out what it was just before the reveal, like what was really going on.
I started questioning it pretty early because I just love the idea that the first date is, Bing 12 hours.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that seems okay. Next date. 5 years. Yeah. You're like, what? And then you just start thinking about how this would work in reality. And you're like, wow, I mean.
And not aging. It all worked really well. This is another episode that I would say is Black Mirror at its best.
Mm-hmm. It was actually an amusing episode as well. Like when the girl he really likes, they have that great pairing. Then the next one, they both match up these people and he finds out, I'm going to be with this. Like from the very beginning, you can tell him and this woman are not a great match. Mm-hmm. And then they go and have sex and it's just like, you can tell that neither one of them is enjoying it.
I really enjoyed when he said to her, do you mind if I think about my last one? And she says, no, that's fine. I'm going to too. Yes.
Literally going through the motions.
Yeah. Whereas the other girl is paired up with the other guy that they seemed to have that initial chemistry. And then when they did that ending, I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, it was very nice. It was very satisfying.
The nice thing about Black Mirror and whatever twists it does employed, I never feel cheated when the reveal is there because I think there's enough clues that you could have figured it out. It's not just, oh, by the way, this was going on. And you're like, what?
Exactly. It's not a twist for the sake of a twist. It's a smart twist. The clues are there, as you say, it's implied, and it makes sense within the plot line. And happy or sad, it's a satisfying twist.
Mm-hmm. Probably my favorite one of the season, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked it. Okay, the next episode is called Metalhead, directed by David Slade. In the post-apocalyptic landscape of the Scottish moors, a woman attempts to survive the land full of dogs. For me, this was my least favorite one. I thought it was just very conventional, no surprises. I still enjoyed it. Like I said, Black Mirror, it's a great show, so it wasn't a waste of an hour, but I would never need to watch this again. I don't think there was anything that made me think about anything. It's not a provocative story. And
no, it's not provocative for sure. It's not great, but
she does a good job, and it's a good performance.
It's solid. It reminded me of I can't remember what season it's from now, the episode where, for lack of a better term, the amusement park, where the guy wakes up, or the girl wakes up.
Oh, yeah.
And
she's being hunted.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it reminded me of that, where you're just launched into something and it's fast-paced and intense and exciting and you don't know what's going on. I was intrigued through most of it. I really liked the black and white photography. I thought it was shot very nicely. Yeah, it was a good, solid episode. Like you said, yeah, nothing provocative in it, but interesting and better for me than the first two of the season.
Okay.
Yeah, I really liked it. It kind of was almost like Cujo on steroids and just a relentless pace of her constantly trying to get away from this dog. For me, I'm still trying to truly understand the ending, like what was in the box. I don't know if that was intentional, if they knew what was in the box.
I think it was.
I think the thing was that the person that kept talking about Jack was just a child, and they just
wanted to replace his teddy bear.
He lost it. Who knows? Maybe this child was sick, and it's one of those they wanted to give him something, like it's a bleak world, and they were just like, we're
any measure of comfort.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming this kid is pretty important to them. That's why they took this huge risk.
On the whole, I'd say middle of the road, but that's not bad. It's still enjoyable. I would watch it again, but yeah, it wouldn't be, given the choice, it wouldn't be one of the first ones that I would watch.
Yeah. Like you guys were saying before, how the other episode felt not like Black Mirror, but more like Twilight Zone kind of thing. That's what this episode felt like to me. Not entirely Black Mirror-ish.
Yeah, I can see that.
I can see that, yeah.
Those dogs, I guess, like how did these dogs bring down civilization, especially in that world with the technology? They would be able to like EMP those things and shut them all down or whatever.
If they have access to it.
That's the thing. We don't know the story. We don't know how they got to that point.
It's just those dogs don't really seem threatening, unless, I guess, it was in America, it'd be different because everybody has guns. They can just shoot them down.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to encounter.
Whereas in, Scotland, probably not as much access to weapons. You would think like...
As much access as America? I can guarantee it.
Yeah.
Okay. The next episode, the last one, Black Museum, directed by Cole McCarthy. A woman enters the Black Museum where the proprietor tells his stories relating to all the artifacts. This was a pretty great episode. I liked it a lot. I love the whole concept of the museum, and talk about episodes episodes. This episode had me pausing the screen a few times and checking out the frames. This one's a pretty dark episode when you think about it.
It is. Yeah. It feels like it's going to be a lighter episode, and didn't catch the actor's name who plays the showman, the proprietor.
I should know him too, but he's really good.
He's good in the writing. The dialogue he's given to be that showman just feels so strong, so authentic, and I can see so many people going into that museum and being suckered in by his stories. He's a great showman, and where's this going? You get the first story, you get the second story, and by the end of the second story, you notice the through line, the connective tissue between the two of them. Still, what is this going to relate to? And it was one of the best episodes.
As conclusions go, it's probably the most satisfying for me.
Yeah, and it felt weird. Like it's like this is their final episode. It just seems like a montage, like an anthology in and of itself. But no, it all of course comes to a head. And
she has an agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the tourist, I can't remember what her name was in the episode,
Nish.
And actually, funny enough, just saw her in Black Panther. So it was interesting to see her in another role. Yeah, it was a very strong episode. Again, I'm always looking for the twist and where it might be going, so I kind of figured it out before the reveal, and that doesn't diminish it at all. It's still a very clever story, and being the longest episode of the season, I never really felt the length.
No.
Like, I thought it ended the story stories when it needed to be done, and the main characters that are pulling you through each story works great.
And of course, the hospital, I don't need to tell you guys, but just for our audience, St. Juniper's, of course, would be the English of San Junipero.
Yes.
Which is a fun little Easter egg.
And they even mention that in, I can't remember which story it was, but they talk about, where you upload old people to the cloud. There's just a little side comment.
Yeah, I caught that too, now that you say it.
Well, it's kind of like they were showing some of this technology, like the whole uploading of your mind was, of course, what led to San Junipero.
Yeah, you can definitely see the
extension somewhere, right?
Yeah.
In the beginning, to me, he just felt like a guy he's working for a company creating this new technology, and they needed people to try it out.
Yeah, he doesn't come across as sinister.
No.
Right.
Sinister, no, but amoral.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amoral. And yet, he's such a showman that you're not angry with him, or you don't think, he's a bad guy. You're just like, what's he going to say next?
But I mean, he explained to these people what happened, and they knew that they're the first people trying it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Shit can go wrong, but they accepted it. But then you have in the second one was the story with the guy when he gets his comatose wife uploaded into his brain.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That was a fun story, too.
Yeah. It was, but it's one of those, like, he did something because he really loved this woman, but after a while, how long can you really live with the second voice in your head?
I've got enough voices in my head. I don't need Melanie's too.
Here's a wild tangent, but I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Ricky Gervais's animated show.
I've listened to it.
With him.
It was animated from this podcast.
Right, with him and Carl.
I've listened to a lot of the podcast episodes.
With him and Carl.
Yeah.
Carl came up with that idea on the show. That exact premise of having a couple who, when you die, you get implanted into someone else's brain. And Ricky excoriated him for being the biggest idiot. That is the stupidest, dumbest idea I've ever heard. I guess a few of the things that Carl has said over the years has made it into Black Mirror episodes, if you want to Google it. Yeah, you can actually just Google Carl Pilkington and Black Mirror and see which particular ideas he came up with.
Wow.
But back to the episode. This episode has some pretty sadistic elements. To think that you could make money off that sort of sadism,
exactly.
That's scary stuff.
And I was, all throughout that, because why are they spending so much focus on him being hot and like what's going on there? And like in my head, I'm like, okay, I know he drank her water, but I still couldn't place it. And then when that third story began, like, I don't know how it fits together, but I kind of see where it's going now.
Yeah. And it all fit together really nice.
Yeah, it was.
I guess it really depends on your morality. Like, do you consider these things to have rights? I like to play Grand Theft Auto, and you drive that car like a maniac. You're running over people left and right.
Yeah, does a cyber conscious have rights?
If it was,
it's actually it's your dad or someone, like,
right? Exactly. If it was a representation of someone you love, and you knew that was happening,
yeah, you would be pissed.
Would you capturing his moment of agony as a souvenir on a keychain for people? Yeah, you want to shoot that fucker between the eyes.
Yeah.
Or
he
burn
gets
it
his
down.
comeuppance. Yeah.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he's definitely that guy that finds the exact right opportunity at the right moment just to push the right button to further his agenda. So to get that back on him, it's satisfying.
And that was before, like, I remember in some shows after the whole White Christmas episode on the news, like little tickers that those cookies have actually been given rights now that you couldn't do these things to them because it's almost like you're torturing that mind. So, when they transfer that woman's consciousness into the monkey, isn't that torturing that poor woman? So it's like just so many different things to think about in this episode.
I know.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Don't get divorced.
Yeah.
Okay. At least they ended off the season strongly.
Yeah, like I said, it started weak for me. Those first 2 episodes I'm very iffy about, but 4 episodes that followed that I really enjoyed, including what might be my favorite episode of the series.
Yeah. So overall, I thought it was a really solid season.
Me too. I really enjoyed 5 out of the 6. There's only that one that I wouldn't bother rewatching because it's nothing engaging or interesting, but I'd rewatch the other 5.
Yeah, I would even rewatch the Star Trek episode because there was a lot of fun things in there, and I'd like to give it another shot, even though I thought it was weak.
Yeah, it was a strong season. Hopefully, they're hard at work, more episodes this year, and by the end of the year, maybe season 5.
I do hope that they do some continuations of some other stories, like Hated in the Nation, because that one was kind of left open, like there's more to tell. So I really hope that they continue that one on and maybe go back to some of the other things. It's nice to see where some things kind of play out.
I know they're coming out with a book series too, and I'm not sure when they're releasing that. I think that could be interesting to explore other ideas.
It lends itself to the other formats. Yeah, I can see Black Mirror video games. Why not?
Absolutely.
That'd be dark and disturbing.
And hopefully its success will lead people to maybe check out some shows of the past like Twilight Zone and Outer Limits, who set the bar for this type of show.
We talked earlier about Thriller in another podcast.
Right,
did you ever check that out?
I did. Yeah, it's available.
It's available. I saw it too. You didn't order it?
No, not yet.
Like, one of these days I want to borrow that from you when you do order it.
All right. I'll let you know. All right. Should we move on to our rant and rave section?
Let's do it.
Okay. I think I'm going to go first again.
What?
Yeah.
What are you going to steal from us this time,
Exactly. It's best to go first. I learned from last week. The chances of you guys reviewing these two is slim. I'm going to start off with a movie from last year. It is a movie called The Promise.
Son of a bitch.
Is that right?
No.
Oh, that'd be funny. Unfortunately, it was one of the biggest flops of the year. $90 million production budget and only made about 6. It stars Oscar Isaac, Christian Bale, Charlotte Le Bon, and Jean Reno. It's directed by Terry George. I'll give you my synopsis. Set during World War I and the final days of the Ottoman Empire, Isaac plays a medical student who leaves his poor village to attend school in Constantinople. There he falls in love with a beautiful teacher, and their tragic love story plays out just as the great Armenian genocide is taking place. Have you guys heard about this film?
I remember seeing the trailer a year or more ago, and I was very much looking forward to it. The trailer looked great. The director had 1 or 2 pretty well-reviewed movies under his belt, and then this movie was just so universally panned that I lost interest. It played in
theaters for like 28 days, or not even maybe. And it also received an astounding 155,000 one-star ratings on IMDb.
Ooh.
Now, there's a lot of controversy due to that because of the film's subject matter. First off, I like this film. It's more of a conventional film. There's not a lot of surprises in it. It's kind of classically told. Maybe more like an English Patient type of film. Has a love triangle in it in a desert location. But it's really the story of the Armenian genocide. And if you believe that this happened or not. Turkey still denies that this event ever took place, the first genocide of the century. I don't think there's any question about it. In my mind, the facts are out there.
They're out there for everyone but the Turkish government,
Absolutely.
really.
So there was a lot of talk that this movie had quite a smear campaign waged against it.
I can see if you're saying it got that many one-star reviews on IMDb, everyone in Turkey gave it 1 star.
Yeah, the IMDb score
not to belittle
has 67,000 one-star votes and 83,000 10-star votes, with only 7% in the middle. So if you want to see what kind of polarizing film this is, right? It's not the quality of the film that's polarizing.
Yeah.
It's whether you believe this happened or not.
No, it's reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, which should be trustworthy because they're coming from established critics and not someone who's racially or culturally motivated, I would think. We're pretty weak, as I recall, yeah. Well, that's why I was turned off by it.
I thought it was about a 70%.
Let's see.
We do have the ability to look this up.
Sounds kind of like a Passion of the Christ, just the context you put it in.
Well, imagine if Schindler's List came out and it started receiving a bunch of one-star votes because of all these people who said it's making up history.
Yeah.
Right. That's how I kind of feel about this film. It's not a film comparable to Schindler's List in quality, but it is a story that I think deserves to be told, and people need to know about this event. And some great performances. Christian Bale plays an American journalist trying to get the story out. It all takes place around World War I, so there was a lot going on in the world. A lot of people said that's how they got away with such a atrocity. Anything that happened to the Armenian people was always their excuse. It was World War I fallout.
Yeah, and I can't remember, did the genocide take place as the Ottoman Empire was kind of losing their foothold during the war? Yeah, so its tomato meter rating is 50%.
Oh, is that right?
And I always don't trust the tomato meter rating. I like to know what the critic's average review is. To put it in context, I don't know how many people out there know how Rotten Tomatoes works. Any positive review is equal to 100% on the tomato meter. So 6 and up is a positive review. Let's say a movie gets 10 reviews. All 10 critics give it a 6 out of 10. It's going to get 100% on the tomato meter. Wow. So you have to take the tomato meter with a grain of salt and look more at the average review. So 50%, who knows what the average review was, maybe even less than that. Audiences give it 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. Okay. So anyways, you're intriguing me more than the Rotten Tomatoes critics reviews.
It's directed by Terry George, who did Hotel Rwanda, which I know was one of your favorite films of that year.
Absolutely.
He also did A Bright Shining Lie. He wrote In the Name of the Father and Some Other Son. So this guy is definitely...
He's a solid filmmaker.
Right, and has an activist agenda and wants to get these stories out. And judging from everything he's been involved with before, I have no reason to believe that he hasn't done his homework on this movie and researched it properly. Anyways, politics aside, it's worth watching for the acting, and the love story is quite good. And it's beautifully shot. And like I said, I think it's important to see the movie just to know the subject. So that would be The Promise. I recommend it, and you can watch it on Movie Central right now. I don't know if it's on Netflix, but it's definitely worth a watch for free. Mm-hmm. Okay, my next one is a documentary. It's called Bertrand, Tavernier, My Personal Journey Through French Cinema. This is put out by the Cohen Media Group. Tavernier is a French director. He's done some films like Round Midnight and A Sunday in the Country, and a terrific Clean Slate, filmed from the early 80s with Philippe Noiret. Anyways, for anyone familiar with Martin Scorsese's documentary, My Personal Journey Through American Cinema, it's very much like that, kind of taken the template from that. So it's this one director and his experience through all the films that he loved as a child. And he talks about famous directors like Jean-Pierre Melville and Jacques Becker, Jean Renoir, Henri-Georges Clouzot. There's a few chapters on some French composers like Maurice Joubert and Joseph Cosma. He spends a lot of time on the great French actor Jean Gabin, some of his contemporaries like Francois Truffaut, Claude Chabrol, and Jean-Luc Godard. If you're a lover of French films, all these names will be very familiar to you. For me, I loved it. I love Scorsese's one. I think it's more comprehensive. It's longer, about 5 hours. This one's about 3. If you're a fan of French movies, and I definitely am, aside from Hollywood, I probably have more French films than from any other country. I really adore them. So I definitely recommend it if you're interested in examining French cinema over the years and seeing what some of this guy's personal favorites are. The guys that he brings up on this are some of the best. And always I can't stand when he brings up directors, the one like Jean Delanoë, whose films are not available in North America at all. And that's maddening to me to spend 15 minutes on watching some films that look fantastic. A bunch of Eddie Constantine films from the 50s look great. None of them are available here.
So would you say, as somebody like myself who's not as well versed in French cinema, would it serve as a good introduction or education on it, or should you have some kind of context and idea before jumping in?
He's not giving an overview of anything. He's just kind of diving right into his personal experiences and what films hit him at certain dates and eras. Then again, Scorsese, it's not like a history of Hollywood by any means. It's more it's just immersive into what films really moved him.
Really spoke to him, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't watch it to be an expert in French cinema as a whole, but if you're interested in checking out a lot of great images over the past and clips from some fantastic movies, I think you'd really enjoy it, even if you didn't have that background information.
Interesting.
I wish he would have gone into a few more guys, like whole chapters on Louis Malle and Robert Bresson, some of my favorites. For me, documentaries that like this are never long enough. You can always throw in a few extra hours, but I really enjoyed it. A real nice disc for film buffs and cinephiles. That was Bertrand, Tavernier, My Personal Journey Through French Cinema, and The Promise. I recommend both. Okay, Darren, you want to go?
Sure. I will start out with something that I'm disappointed that I forgot to bring my show and tell. You guys know I love my show and tell. But so La La Land Records recently released Close Encounters, the 40th anniversary edition. It was meant to coincide with last year's release of the film for the 40th anniversary, but whatever delays, it didn't come out till December. So it was 2 CDs dedicated to John Williams' classic score. They did something a little bit different than what a lot of these releases tend to be. It didn't just focus on being a chronological telling of the score, unedited with all the cues thrown in there. The producer of it, Mike Matessino, he found going through his studio records when he was producing it that John Williams had wanted the soundtrack to Close Encounters to be released as a double LP at the time of the film. Whatever monetary decisions went into it by the studio, that was nixed, and it was just a single LP. So the original soundtrack wasn't exactly what John Williams wanted it to be.
There's enough music on there to warrant a double disc?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if there's a record of what John Williams' intended 2LP program would have been, but Mike Matessino tried to make what he calls a grand symphony of Close Encounters. So it's truly mostly a chronological telling on disc 1 following the score. I mean, it's a magnificent score, so almost any way you present the music, it's going to be good. Disc 2 is kind of then an alternate view. It's full of some alternate cues, the source music, and then here and there on disc 1, some tracks are combined, some cues are combined to make one track. So those are split up on disc 2 then. So if you want to, and I am the kind of person that does want to, make your own chronological complete playlist, you can do that as well. It's such a classic score, and beyond just the 5-note contact motif that everyone knows, there's so much great material there. It's a wonderful release, one of my 10 favorite John Williams scores. It is limited to 5,000 copies, so I'm sure it'll be around for a couple of years, but don't delay too long if you're interested. Highly recommend.
One of the great scores.
Yeah.
That's funny. When I do think of that score, I don't think of the 5-piece notes. I think of other stuff jumps to mind.
That's good because, I don't know, for most people, and myself included, when I was a kid, and the first time I bought the Close Encounters soundtrack as a teenager, I was just waiting. Okay, okay, there's that 5-note motif. I really like it. And it's barely even heard on the album because you hear it more in the film from sources in the film, like over the telephone and the guy in Mexico. Yeah, the xylophone. Right. The Mexican guy who whistles it, it's less a part of the score than it is a part of the movie. And it's such a modernistic score. There's so much great, I don't know, it doesn't have the romantic feel that Star Wars has at all, for sure. And so it's musically very interesting. And a
great movie.
And a great movie, yeah. I highly recommend both the movie and the score. Close Encounters. Check it out.
Cool.
Next one. Ron, I think I can already feel you scowling at me. I wanted to talk about The Graduate. I just watched it for the second time ever. I'll start by saying I do like the film. I give it a little bit of a thumbs up. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
You might recall...
Then the pyramids are some pretty neat architecture.
Yeah. you might recall me saying the first time I watched The Graduate, I felt it was pretty overrated, and I don't feel any differently having viewed it again. The thing is, I'm going to be talking probably more about my problems with the film than the things I like, and that's going to make it sound like I didn't like it, but I like the film.
Okay.
I do like it. To start out with, the character of Benjamin, right from the very beginning, he comes home got his university degree. He just completed college. He's got rich white parents. He's living in Southern California. What could be better? And he's just mopey. He's one of these guys who's, what am I going to do with my life? I'm so sad. And
takes place during the mid-60s.
Sure, but we haven't met this guy yet. So we don't know why he's so...
I think he might stand for the disillusionment of all teenagers and kids his age at that time.
Okay.
We got to remember.
I can't relate to that. I can't relate to that.
And even Benjamin is supposed to be 20, and I think Dustin was 33 when he played him. Let that go.
He comes across as not exactly the right age, but yeah, that's okay. So I don't know. He's an unlikable character. I don't like him, and I'm hardly ever rooting for him in the movie. The only way I am kind of rooting for him is that he gets a bum rap, like Mrs. Robinson, the way she twists and manipulates him. You do feel bad for him because of the two, he's the more sympathetic. But I'm not rooting for him from the start, so I'm not that into his progress, his arc.
He's hard to root for. He doesn't know what he wants. So it's hard to root for a character when...
And like I say, it's hard to relate to that because why? Why haven't we're introduced to him right when he's, what am I going to do with my life? I'm just lying around in the pool drinking a beer in the summertime. Woe was me.
It's very relaxing just to lie in the pool.
Yeah, so why is he mopey about it? He needs to get over himself. And I didn't grow up in the 60s, so I don't know. It's hard for me to relate to that.
You can't relate to the kids on the Breakfast Club either. I guess you must have had just a perfect upbringing.
I always knew what I wanted, I guess. Let's put it that way. I don't know.
Even when you're not rooting for him at the beginning, you're still laughing at him.
That's the thing. It's such a sharp, witty story.
Right.
And I mean, Buck Henry's script is, it's wonderful. The one other big complaint I have of it too is I think, even for that time, mid to late 60s, I feel the handling of the May-December romance is a little immature. Like Benjamin's reactions to Mrs. Robinson, when Fred Flintstone is faced with a beautiful woman sometimes and he can't talk,
starts banging his head against the wall.
Yeah, it's a little immature. I don't know. I know for the movies at that time, it's probably, for sure groundbreaking, but I think that even audiences at the time should have been able to kind of say, it doesn't really totally feel true to how a guy would react in that situation.
It's very cinematic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike Nichols' direction is...
Yeah. I mean, it feels like the best things about it or another beyond Buck Henry's script is it feels like an extended music video for a couple of the greatest songs ever written.
Right, exactly.
I feel
before that format was invented.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, there's a lot of wonderful montages in it set to. I mean, the great song "Sound of Silence." And, I mean, there's a lot to like here. My thumb is up. I enjoy the film, but I do think it is overrated.
It's probably in my top 50 of all time for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, the way you talk about it. I wouldn't even be surprised if you said it was in your top 10, but was that a little generous?
Top 25? How's that?
Yeah, I mean, that's no small amount of movies you've seen. So
you bet.
Yeah.
No, I love it.
So, a mild recommendation.
If you're a true movie lover and you want to check out our movies of the past,
it's one to watch. Yeah, it's not worth skipping for sure. There's a lot to get out of it, and it is an entertaining film for sure. Okay. I have reservations though.
Mm-hmm. Next week he'll be back with his middling review of Lawrence of Arabia.
That's right. David Lean. Don't even get me started on that hack.
All right, that's all you got today?
Yeah.
Ivan, would you like to go?
I suppose. The first, it's not going to be a massive rave. It's going to be middle of the road. I caught up with Altered Carbon. For the most part, I would say I really like this show.
Netflix show, right?
Yes. It's based on a book. So the premise of this is that people, it's kind of in the future, they have these things in the back of their necks called the stacks, which kind of keeps your consciousness almost in there, or your memories. So if your body gets destroyed, they can just put this thing in another body and you're back. And this one guy that pretty complicated history, but he gets brought out from he's serving his sentence, put into a body and hired by one of the richest people in the world to solve his murder. And then, of course, because this guy, what he used to be, a lot of problems come with it, because even the body that they put the mind in, it's not the guy's original body. Only the ultra rich, let's say you were this guy, you can actually keep cloning your body. So every time you need a new one, you basically just put your mind in your own body, versus everybody else. This is what's available. So you could be a guy and now you're a woman.
It's almost like instead of getting a liver transplant, you get the entire body transplant.
Yeah. And the ultra rich, they actually can keep having this thing uploaded into a satellite. So even if that thing gets destroyed, they can just go from
your consciousness is in the cloud.
They're living in the cloud. Yeah,
exactly. I like the show a lot for when they were doing flashbacks and showing that aspect of it. But I guess the detective story, it just wasn't that intriguing to me. And then some reveals the big twist that they thought they could have been a little more original with it. But I guess it stuck to the source material. But there was a lot here to like. It was a lot of interesting stuff. Good actors were in this, ones that I enjoyed at least, and they did have some pretty bad ones. One of the characters was a very cliche Latina female cop, a chip on the shoulder with that fiery temper type deal. It's
was she played by Michelle Rodriguez?
No, I'm just joking. But it would have been pretty much the same if she was. And it just kind of seemed like they could have done something different with it instead of kind of playing the cliches. But it was an interesting show. It was worth a watch.
I've seen the pilot and I found it very middling. Aesthetically, beautiful. It reminded me a lot of Blade Runner. It took a lot of cyberpunk elements from their vision of the future. And that's maybe one of its weaker points, is in that it reminded you of a lot of better things, in my opinion. And I've only seen the pilot, so I can only hope that it gets better after the pilot. Friend of the show, Troy Rudolph, was actually in the pilot for a glimpse. So it's cool to see him on screen. But yeah, the acting I found a little wooden and all over the place. The main guy who was actually in the series The Killing, he's likable enough, but a lot of the supporting characters I found really borderline awful. The pilot was interesting enough that I want to see more. So it's good to hear that you were able to get through it.
There's definitely some episodes later on where he gets so much better, especially when they go into his history and background. It gets significantly better, but it was enough for me. There was definitely enough for me to finish watching it. I would say don't judge it based on the first one because it builds, and then give it a shot. I would say first season, then see if you want to continue on later.
Okay.
Yes, and my second one is going to be the new DC animated feature, Batman Gotham by Gaslight.
Is that out?
Yeah.
Oh, I should have asked you to bring it.
Oh, well.
Maybe next time.
Yeah, next time.
I thought of it when I was watching it this morning.
But you didn't bring it anyways. Nope. Well, I will say this one is a rave for me. Finally, after the last two offerings they give us, I can finally say I like one.
The basic premise for all those two out there.
So people that don't know, DC has an Elseworld storyline where they'll take characters and put them in alternate universes or different eras, kind of like Superman Red Son, where he grew up in the Soviet Union. This is Batman in Victorian era, and he's trying to solve the mystery of Jack the Ripper. And I liked it. I liked the animation because I thought that it fit the era they were kind of going in. It fit really well. The voice actors, of course, they always have the greatest voice actors in this show. And can't really get too much into it. But if you read the comic, they did change the storyline for the movie. It's still, Jack the Ripper, but who is revealed to be the Ripper is different in the comic. Some people may not like the change, but for me, I felt that it worked for the story that they were trying to tell. It wasn't like in those other last couple of movies where we made these changes that were just kind of asinine and had stupid reasons behind it. And they had a lot of the rogues gallery kind of show up, but they didn't overtake the movie. They were just paying homage to these characters. And I thought it was just really well done.
Yeah, I watched it this morning before recording because I wanted to be able to chime in. I haven't read the comic in ages, so any alterations they made to the story didn't really matter to me, which actually I like taking that approach. And I will say the issues that we had with the previous review of The Killing Joke was any extra material really didn't fit what they were trying to do. Whatever alterations they made, I couldn't tell what was thrown in or what was altered. Everything seemed to work. The art style seemed a little generic, very much Batman the Animated Series, which is fine because I love that series, but I love the art of Mike Mignola from the original comic. And for those who don't know who that is, he's the creator and artist of Hellboy as well. So he's got a very unpolished, blocky style, and maybe the muddy kind of blocky wouldn't have worked for an animation style to see it moving. But yeah, I thought it was really well done as well.
I can't wait to see it. I'm a big fan of Jack the Ripper lore. I just finished reading Alan Moore's From Hell again, and it is so brilliant and throws you into that world and all of the myriad conspiracy theories. I'm wondering which one they chose for this, but
and I really enjoyed even the movie adaptation of From Hell.
Yeah, but
it's good.
The graphic novel is
it's. I mean, they never do it justice when they're
not even close to that one.
Still, it was not bad for the people that just want to see the movie, but the graphic novel is superior.
Yeah, for sure.
So, that's it for me.
Paul, would you like to go next?
Sure. I've got a strong, throbbing rave. This is a movie from a director that I love everything I've seen from him, and he's got a movie coming up this year that I know both Ron and I are really looking forward to. It's a movie that kind of slipped under my radar, and I'm not sure why, but it's Grand Budapest Hotel from Wes Anderson. I hadn't seen it before, but noticed it was on Netflix, and so my wife and I watched it. I think I maybe kept getting it confused with the Best Marigold
Exotic
Hotel.
Marigold.
Yeah, and I always thought it looked like that might be charming enough, but wasn't really wanting to go out of my way to watch it. So when my wife suggested we watch this, I thought, all right, fine. And then the minute it started, I thought, oh shit, this isn't what I thought. I love this movie. If you don't know who Wes Anderson is, he's kind of like a quirkier, talkier Coen brother almost. Like he's definitely not going to be for everybody, but he's got a sensibility and style that I love. The first movie I saw of his was Rushmore, and I was hooked. I love his work. So for those of you that don't have any idea what this movie is about, let me start by listing the cast.
Good, yeah, I was going to say good luck with the quick synopsis of the plot.
But. Yeah. So the cast is Ralph Fiennes, F. Murray Abraham, Adrian Brody, Willem Dafoe, Jeff Goldblum, Harvey Keitel, Jude Law, Bill Murray, Ed Norton, Saoirse Ronan, Jason Schwartzman, Tilda Swinton, and many, 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 many more. You can tell
and the kid who plays Zero, you mentioned him, right?
I didn't, and I forget his name.
Yeah, his name, he played Flash in the new Spider-Man movie.
That's right.
Blanking on his name too, but he's terrific.
Yeah, and he's very good to be in this level of cast. And stick out. He's great, because if that character doesn't work, then this movie falls apart. But just looking at the level of talent in this movie gives you an indication of the quality of film that you're likely to get. And this movie delivers in spades. So just a very brief synopsis. It's a very quirky look at the life and adventures of the concierge of this hotel that's very popular in and of its time. And the setting of the story is between the First and Second World War. And so you can it goes through the lifespan of the hotel a little bit in that, it's got its peaks and valleys as far as popularity, but it's more about the adventures of the people associated with the hotel than the hotel itself. And it's just a fun, and I hate to overuse the word quirky, but just a fun and different style and portrayal of this man's life adventures. And it's so dialogue driven and character driven and witty and funny. And I loved it.
Yeah, it helps if you know Wes Anderson's work. I think if you're familiar with him, you don't really have to say much more. I'll say it too. Quirky is really the word that you want to use with him. He has such a sensibility. He's one of my favorite filmmakers too. And nobody frames shots like him. I can look at just about any frame of one of his films and recognize that it's a Wes Anderson shot. That's how distinctive he is. Yeah, I love his movies. I love this one. There's lots of different time periods, and every time they switch from time periods, they switch from letterbox to 1.3 to 2.35. It's lots of colorful characters. It never stops.
No, it's relentless.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It has some darker moments.
And those darker moments are counterweighted by goofy, funny character moments that are, they deliver in spades. And it's just, he's always got such a charm about his delivery of movie. And it makes me look all the more forward to Isle of Dogs. I mean, I loved Fantastic Mr. Fox, as I've likely said on here before, so can't wait. And then my second rave, I would classify this as almost like a bit of candy. It's a Netflix documentary series called The Toys That Made Us. And thus far, they've only released 4 episodes. It's all centered on toys of, well, our generation's childhood, and very notable toys like Barbie, Star Wars toys, of course, He-Man, and G.I. Joe. And it follows the inception of the idea of what these toys could be to what they become. And it follows it right through up until modern day of where that toy line failed, or if it's still going, or maybe they've tried to reinvent it a couple times. Very educational. I knew a lot about the Star Wars line already. Big surprise. But there was still stuff in there that I didn't know. I found it very interesting that they're talking to the people that were actually involved in the creation of it, like down to the names of these things and the design. And that really interests me on a lot of levels too, other than just the product itself. I knew next to nothing about Barbie, but of course my wife knew almost everything, but still very engaging and interesting to follow the inception of an idea until the stage where it reaches its mass popularity and where it is now. I loved it. And anybody that's, you know, wants to have a fun trip down memory lane and see the toys they played with, or even the collector, like a lot of us are, it's fun to see what other things are out there that maybe you might want to add to your collection. So
if you're not familiar with the whole Kenner deal and how they snagged the licensing to Star Wars, it's very interesting.
Yeah. And then how they ultimately lost it too. It's a very, very interesting story, behind the scenes story, not just a product placement, but yeah, the story of that product. And I'm really looking forward to, they've got 4 more episodes slated to come out, I think later this year. And it's all on Lego, of course, Hello Kitty, Star Trek, and...
Star Trek, really? I was hoping one would be on the Mego action figures.
Yeah, well, and there seems like if this is popular enough, which it seems to be, that there's got to be more, like Thundercats, or, you know, there's a lot of big properties from my youth that I would think, like Cabbage Patch Kids, something like that, that was like mass hysteria.
Well, even something as recent as Beanie Babies have. And I've seen some of these as well. And I've seen the Masters of the Universe one because I'm a big He-Man fan. It's a very interesting show. I agree with you. Like, it's so well done, especially talking to people that were there that created them.
It's also interesting to see how a lot of these companies were really just flying by the seat of their pants at the time, because a lot of the properties they were dealing with outside Barbie, of course, it was kind of like following up the Star Wars toys and trying to compete with or rival and find that amount of success. And yeah, that was really interesting to see, just even from the business aspect of it too. So like I said, for those who are collectors or just want a fun trip down memory lane, these are definitely well worth checking out.
And it's on Netflix.
It is.
All right, let's wrap it up. Next time, we'll be back to do our post-Oscar show. Let's hope things run a little smoother this time. Until then, please subscribe and give us a rating on our iTunes, Apple Podcasts. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if interested, you can always comment and search for our past reviews on our website at whywesee@libsyn.com. Until then, take care out there, and thanks for listening.
Ciao.
So long.
Later.
You can run around, even put me down, still